Hi, and welcome everyone to our webinar with Julie Gilbert Pollard. Hi, Julie.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. Just wanted to give everyone a chance to start joining us as they check in. We're just going to let all these participants come in. We just opened up the webinar. Where are you joining us from, Julie? Are you in Phoenix?
Yeah, I live on the west side of town in
Yes.
Phoenix, Arizona,
And
and it's
how
a
is the weather
beautiful
there
day.
today? Oh, good. How
Gonna
hot?
be
That's
hot,
my
but
next question.
yeah, it's been around 100 or so for the last, I don't know, a few days, I guess. But right
Wow.
now it's pretty dry, so it really doesn't feel that bad. But and I'm in the house most of the time,
Good,
so
good.
if I were working outside, then I would have a different story.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so. I'm going to encourage our people that are just joining us right now to let us know in the chat box where they are coming from. I'm sure there are some people joining us from Arizona as well. But if you have a moment, just say hi and let us know where you're joining us from. Let everyone just start joining as we go through, and I'll start in about a minute or so. Um, all right, we've got Logan, Utah.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. All right, Northern California. Where else is everyone joining us from? I hope the weather is great. Oh my gosh, Maria from
Brazil.
Sao Paulo, Brazil. Isn't that amazing? Thank you. What time is it there? Probably pretty late. Dallas, Texas. Yay. Oahu, Hawaii. Oh my
Oh, hi,
gosh.
Pearl. I know Pearl. I
Thanks for
probably
joining us.
some last names I can remember and some I don't. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, it's only 5 p.m. there. That's great. I'm glad it's not too late. Wonderful. We've got Christy from
Michigan.
Wisconsin, Michigan. That's fabulous. We've got more people joining us.
Yeah, hello also to Northern California. I'm a California girl from my childhood, although
Oh,
I haven't lived
wow.
there time.
Born and raised?
No, no, actually born in Texas, but we moved to California when I was just 3 months old. So I consider myself a Californian, really.
I like that. I
three
like
months
that.
old, you're pretty, pretty good to
Absolutely.
claim a state at that age.
That's wonderful. We've got Tucson, Arizona, Sonoma County. That's wonderful. Well, I'm joining you all not from the campus on Madeline Island. I'm actually joining you guys from San Francisco right now. I am attending this webinar from an airport, which is always fun. But I'm going to get started now so that because we have a full hour ahead of us, and I want to take advantage of all the time we have with you, Julie. Just wanted to introduce myself. I am Annie Sumner. I'm the director at Madeline Island School of the Arts. I'm hosting this webinar with Julie today, and we are just here to introduce Julie to you all and give everyone who doesn't know you as well as we do, Julie, just a little bit about background about what you do. You are teaching with us this fall, September 9th to September 13th on Madeline Island, which is really fun.
I
And
can't
just to
wait to
give you
go
all,
back.
I know it was so great having you there last year.
Oh, thank you.
It just was an amazing weather we had. But give you
Mhm.
guys all just a little background about Julie that some of you don't know Julie. She's a Phoenix artist. Julie, you paint in oil and watercolor in a fluid, painterly manner, as you can see from a piece that she did on Madeline Island last year. Her painting style, while representational, is colored with her own personal concept of reality. You are the author of 3 Northlight books: Discover Oil Painting, Watercolor Unleashed, and Brilliant Color. Plus, you've done 9 videos for artistnetwork.com. You're a frequent award winner, right? Pollard's oils and watercolors have
I
hung
have
in
them.
numerous
Yeah.
juried and gallery exhibits. Your most notable award that I was aware of was the Best Impressionist Painting in Best of America, the National Oil and Acrylics Painters Society 2012 and Best Use of Light and Color in Best America. And you will be joining us on Madeline Island. The workshop that you will be teaching will focus on, like this picture here describes, the rocky shores with breaking waves, the sandstone cliffs, and the beautiful sea caves on Madeline Island. 2 days will be spent on like light field trips for light plein air studies, obviously. And then 3 days will be spent in our gorgeous light-filled NISA studios. And again, to all of you, if painting water is your passion, you'll learn and gain insight that will apply to these and your future waterscapes with Julie. I am going to take it from here and give it to you, Julie, and
Okay.
let you tell us all about what the week with you will be like and what it is that you love so much about what you do.
Well, thank you for having me, and welcome everybody. Yeah, water is my passion. Water and rocks are my passion to paint. And I do love plein air painting. My focus these days with workshops like this is plein air for everyone. The older I get, I know the less I want to carry a huge amount of stuff with me on a plein air trip. You know, I have in the past, carried heavy stuff up and down the cobblestone streets in Italy's hill towns, and we had a fabulous time. I don't think I could do that anymore. So nowadays I get more enjoyment from just being able to sit and enjoy the process and not have so much stuff to carry around. So I also like to paint or talk about and present plein air to studio so that you can get some information, inspiration, and some wonderful times out on site. And then a little bit of the luxury of being back in the studio. Excuse me. I have a frog in my throat. Of having a little more time to finish up the paintings without the bugs and the wind and all of that stuff. So anyway, that's my focus, and I think it should be for everyone, not just for youngsters who can, hike for 5 miles and set up and paint for a few hours, which a lot of people do. So anyway, that's my focus. And so, of course, I do bring an easel, and I bring enough material so that I can do a good job. Most of the time, I would be painting from an easel so that the people in the class can see what I'm doing. If I'm just sitting with it on my lap, it's hard for the class to actually see. But if you don't want to have an easel, you don't have to have an easel. You bring what is comfortable for you. So I don't know. I'm happy to take any questions on supplies. And when I get to the demo part, please feel free to ask questions. I say a lot, I'm sorry. And if I can answer, I will. I'll answer the best of my ability. If my brain is kind of stuck on what I'm doing, I might say, give me a moment, and then I'll think about what my answer should be. So anyway, please, I do welcome questions. But I want to start out with a screen share, and I'll start that now. And I've got it queued up here, so it should be quickly accessible. There it is. Get this out of the way. Okay, I didn't want that split screen. I don't know why it's doing that. All right. I wasn't going to show this picture but now I can't get it out of the way. Okay, I'll just advance through to where I wanted to be. That's not it. Okay, there's where I wanted to be.
Oh, wow.
and I need my notes. All right, I've got my cheat sheet ahead of me now. So the first picture was that you can't see, and I can't seem to get to it, is I can't move these pictures around. Let's try this. Okay, there we go. So I wanted you to see first my process in general. So this is what I was looking at. I wanted you to see that. And then I start, whether it's in plein air or studio, I try to start with a simplification of the scene and the process and the colors and the composition. I guess that would come under, there are four things I try to simplify. The other one will come to me in a minute. So I did a very simple sketch. And then I start with the lightest values, then the midtones, and then the final darks. So this is what I call a 4-step watercolor sketch. And this is just a picture of another one I started in the same location. And just so you can see my palette, it's a pretty small travel palette, which is also my studio palette. So after lunch, I came back, and here's the same scene only a couple hours later. But I want to talk now about taking this back to the studio. So in the studio, I also will do a 4-step sketch, which can also be thought of as a painting. Some of my 4-step sketches are super simple, like the one you just saw, and then some are a little bit more detailed, like this one. But the main thing is the mindset of simplicity. So I went on to do a studio painting from the same scene. And this is my drawing with a little bit of masking fluid strategically placed to save a few of the foamy water splashes. I don't really like masking fluid very much, so I use it usually very minimally. So for this particular painting, I started in a very direct manner. Sometimes I'll do an underpainting. Sometimes I'll do a partial underpainting. It just depends on how I feel about it at the time. So what I mean by direct, there are different definitions of direct. What I mean when I say direct is that I finish each area as I go. Not necessarily my go-to, but sometimes I do, maybe half and half. So when you see the finished painting, that particular boulder will look pretty much the same. I might have put another brush stroke or two on it, but not very much. So you can see that I just did all the rocks to begin with in a pretty direct manner. Now, when I paint water, whether it's still or flowing, splashing, whatever, I usually do start with the rocks, because what the water is doing, as in still and reflective, falling. Oh, by the way, I'm using my cursor here that I've got enlarged and in hot pink as my pointer. So if you could see that, that's what I'm pointing to, what I'm referring to. So the flat reflective water, the falling water, the splashing water, the undulating water, whatever the water movement is, because it's dependent on what it's flowing over and through, which it would be the rocks, the visible thing that they're flowing around and through. That's what I start with. That makes sense to me. It's not the way to do it, but it makes sense to me, and so that's what I usually do. And there's the finished painting. So moving along, and of course, at this point, we're going back to the location. So at this point, I'm sitting on the bank after lunch, just a little bit farther downstream. I don't know, maybe 100, 200 feet, a different view. And this is how far I was able to get in plein air. So it's natural for me to have a class where I start paintings in plein air and then don't have enough time to finish them and then finish them later in the studio. So this is as far as I got. And then back in the studio, I decided I needed a darker forest area behind this tree, a little darker values in the water, a few brush strokes here in the bank. Most of the rocks and water are as they were when I left the scene. So now we're back in the studio. So I'm showing this picture to you once more because I want to say that back in the studio, I have more time. I can pour through the pictures. And sometimes I will, just for a different perspective, I'll flip that image to, let's see, there we go. I'll flip that image to a mirror image. And let's see, I need to go back and I can't seem to find there. That little totem pole of heads is right in my way. I can't go back apparently. So, oh, no, I did. So this is the studio painting, but you'll notice that the composition is the same as the plein air one I did, but I flipped it. So my signature is backward. I just wanted you to see the difference between that original viewpoint and the one that I did in the studio. So they kind of look the same, but a mirror image just has a different feel, and I like to do that from time to time. So now we're going to go to Madeline Island. So I wanted to show you my process in general before moving to Madeline Island. Madeline Island is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This little pond is very close to it's on the grounds, and it's just a few minute walk from the classroom. And this is the where we spent our first plein air day. So there were wildflowers everywhere, but you don't really see them in this picture. I'm just telling you that it was it was more colorful than the green you see in this picture. So I wanted to get warmed up. This is just a little warm-up sketch. I always feel like, and this is me in my beautiful, fashionable sun protection, but that's not what I wanted you to see. So I started this demo in plein air by showing how I would apply that 4-step sketch as a preliminary study out in the field, and also without all the gear. So you can see I don't have a lot of stuff. I did have it with me, but I just held the pad and got started that way. So just as a reminder that this backpack has all the stuff, but you don't have to have all the stuff. All that stuff is kind of fun, though. The colors in this picture are brighter than the painting actually was. And you can see here, this is that little 4-step sketch. So the 4-step sketch, I don't consider it a painting. Let's put quotation marks around it, unless I take it several steps further than what you see here. Sometimes they go that a little bit further, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they look pretty good. Other times they look really ugly. This one is, it's just so-so. But if I get an ugly one, and I have a couple to show you later if I wind up having time, If they're ugly, I'm like everybody else. I kind of berate myself. Oh, you could have done better, blah, blah, blah. And then I stop and I say, well, this sketch wasn't your painting. It has a job to do. The job it had to do was to teach you. Did it? Did I learn things that I needed to know before diving into what I will call more or less a real painting? Yes, it did. If I captured more or less the essence of the scene, that also means it's a success. Doesn't have to be pretty. So here I'm going to consider this a real painting, and there's the finished painting. What I showed you just a second ago was as far as I was able to get that day in plein air, because I do a little painting and I walk around to check on everybody, and so I don't really have the time to sit and do a full painting. So this one was done as a demo on finishing later in the studio. I threw this one in because this was from a photo that I took on the trip, but did as a painting a few months later. And why I'm showing this one is that one of the things that I try personally to get from plein air painting is that feeling, well, that plein air feeling, that plein air sensitivity. I want to take that back to the studio with me. I don't really want my studio paintings to look completely different from my plein air work. Looseness is always my goal. And so there are no two paintings are ever going to look alike anyway, but I think I'm getting closer to having a plein air flavor in my studio work because of the plein air work that I've been doing. This is my setup. Now, this is at Big Bay. This is looking, I think there's a little, after you walk from the car park, and come out onto this little point that's fenced in for safety, although there are swimmers and kayakers out beyond the fenced area. So this is looking north, I believe. I did look at a map, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But this is the easel that I use. And you can see my simple setup. I do have the easel that adds some weight, but a small sketchbook, a little bag with some brushes, and my palette. Now, this is the scene. This is, I don't know. I don't know distance. Several steps across that little fenced-in area to look more or less southward. So this is really kind of the iconic scene from that park. And that is what I used as my composition, just part of that scene. So I just want to show you, this was a preliminary study. I really believe in preliminary studies. And just so you can see the beginning, I am not doing it quite like a 4-step, but I'm trying to take some of that 4-step idea into the painting. So starting with the light, I generally do use the traditional light to dark, not exclusively, but in general. Let's see. Also, when you're painting in plein air, your paper is going to dry very quickly. So I really didn't wait to put in these colors right here, but the paper had dried in this area enough so that it didn't, these reds or kind of purpley colors did not bleed out into the water. But while I'm on that topic, I wanted to show you how I often will deliberately allow the colors to merge into the background, because I really do enjoy looking at a looser style of painting rather than tight. So just a continuation of the process. So this is how the painting was when I left the park that day. This is how far I got. So this part is pretty much finished, but in the finished painting, you'll see how I then had to develop the foliage, put the tree, that little sapling in, but the water background and the sky stayed the same. It was the reflections that I then put on top of the existing water underpainting. And there's the finished painting, finished in the studio. And these
Julie,
pictures,
can I jump in for
sure,
a second
go
and
ahead.
ask? I have a question from Deborah. What paper do you use in plein air? Is it the same that you use in the studio?
Pretty much. I do use a different size, but I'll use it in the
Okay.
studio too. And I have the tablet to show you when we're done with the slideshow, which is the next picture. I got together some of my plein air equipment so that I could show you for anybody who's interested. So I just wanted you to see what the place looks like. I mean, this is just so beautiful. And of course, pictures don't do it justice. And there's an island that's very famous for its sea caves, but there are some sea caves on Madeline Island too. And this is on Madeline Island. It's just it's really a magical place. So I am going to stop screen sharing. I don't. Uh, were there any questions before I stop sharing? Were there any questions on what I've showed you so far? If not,
It
I will.
seems it was just the question about the plein air, the size of the paper.
Okay. So here we are. So what I use in the studio more often than not these days is a watercolor block. And if I feel like I can stand the weight in my suitcase, I will bring it with me. Uh, Too many clips. So this is my studio watercolor block that I might or might not take. If I don't take it, I wish I had. If I do take it, I wish I didn't. But it's a 10 by 14. But what I take for plein air, you'll see it's the same paper, but it's not in a block, it's in a pad. But it's Arches 9 by 12 rough. I just like the 9 by 12 because it fits very easily in my backpack. And it's, if you, 8 by 10 is good, but I kind of want something a little bit larger for some reason. So 9 by 12, I feel is a good compromise. So this is the one that I take, and it's not nearly as heavy and not quite as large. I always have some bulldog clips. No, not bulldog, binder clips to hold everything together. Let's see, get myself reorganized here. And I'm happy to talk about supplies for anybody who wants.
It
So
sounds like people are interested in hearing what your plein air equipment is, Julie.
Okay.
And also, if you can mention and go into a little bit more detail about the 4-step process, that would be great.
Okay, so this is the supply list that I send out. And so for every workshop, I'll go through my standard supply list and make sure I highlight in yellow the things that I will be bringing. And so so my list is very comprehensive. So before any trip, I have this printed out and I just go, well, I want to take this, or I want to take this. So if it's not on this list, I know I don't need to go out and look for something else because it's all here. But that doesn't mean that I bring everything that's on here. So I send this list and it shows, for example, here it's a category. So I would have all of these items.
Can you read that category? I can't really see it right here from
Yeah, you
on the
probably
screen.
can't. Um, so this one is the colors that I use. I'll
Okay,
have all these with me, but those
right.
7 are the ones I think that are most important. And I probably should not go through each item or I won't have time for the demo. Um, but if anybody wants to email me and
That
you can
that
find me, contact me through my website. I'll be happy to send you my supply
Julie, that
list.
materials list I believe is on our website as well.
I probably tweaked it a little bit
Okay,
since then. I will
okay,
send you the updated version. It
right.
stays,
You don't have to be
99% the
registered for a
same.
class though with you to see that
Right.
that materials list. So it is on our website. If you go to Madeline School, you'd be able to see a tweaked version of one of the materials list that Julie's talking about.
Um, I would say from year to year, my supply list stays 98, 99% the same.
Right.
But I might find another color that I like a little bit better, or another
Hmm.
brush that I like a little bit better, or something like
Sure.
that. These are my brushes. Um, I've got some expensive brushes that aren't in here, and I've got these are really cheap, but this is what I basically painted uh, this with. And I hate to give plugs, but I found it was these 3 on Amazon for about $20. And they have a screw in handle so that when I go like that, I don't get see to flip the paint off, the brush isn't going to go sailing into the lake. So I like that. It has a really nice attachment that's not going to come apart. Let's see. So I have the set came with 3 sizes, but the big one is it's a good size for a travel brush like this. And I just have a little card with I really find that uh, a 3/4 and a 1/2 inch flat are critical. So I have those on a little card and I have bigger brush holders that have more brushes and I wind up not using them. So, in a little water container. And those really are the necessities. Oh, and a pencil box. You got to have a pencil. Got to have some pencils.
Bring
So
an eraser as well. Is it allowed
and an
pencils and
eraser.
erasers? Good.
So I love this one. So I have a Vanish eraser. I think that's a Jerry's product, Vanish eraser. And my pencils, a little palette knife, a little spray bottle of water, a little uh, knife, and and several pencils. Now, what I have, I hate to take too much time up away from my demo, and I better move this out of the way. But this
Julie,
is
would it
my
be possible to ask you questions while you're doing your demo?
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
great, great. So I'll let you
So
get
this is
started on your demo and
my emergency kit, plein air emergency. I don't usually have both of these in, but I have a little tablet, came from Michael's, that fits in here, and this little pencil case that's got a very small um, watercolor kit. But what I've actually used on a plane is this one.
fun.
And so you can do something artsy without having all the stuff. Got a couple of brushes that have the water in them. That's what I used on the plane. And this little water spray bottle, optical cleaning solution bottle. So you can accomplish art without having all the gear, if that is your preference. Okay, I'm not going to spend time trying to get this all back together. I do like the visual journal. It's a little heavier though, so usually this is just my emergency kit. But if I think I'm going to want some better paper, then I'll stick this one in. But this is just for emergencies. I say that laughingly but if you're a painter, you have those emergencies where you have to paint and you don't have all your stuff. The other important thing for plein air painting, and I'm going to do my demo using my plein air palette. I have several of these palettes. This just happens to be my plein air one. I have a different assortment of colors for studio painting. I'm seeing nowadays that a lot of people are using these, but I've been using this for I don't know, 25 years maybe, as soon as it came out and I saw it. So it really gives you a ton of room for mixing, has 18 very generous wells. I used to use a John Pike palette for studio painting, but the wells on this are almost as big as a John Pike, and it folds up so well. It has this little rubber gasket that keeps the paint from sloshing out, but I still keep it in a baggie. So because after you paint, of course, then it gets a little soupy. So anyway, this is my plein air palette. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I thought I would do my demo using these colors. For plein air painting, I use a different palette of colors and a different brand of paint. I use M. Graham. Now, most of this palette has been sitting here for, over a year without me using it. But unlike my studio colors, if I just miss them, I will, and I hope it doesn't make a liar out of me. You know how sometimes you say something and it makes a liar out of you. I don't think this will, but so I'll say I need a really juicy dark. Look how dark. So I can't say that these are my favorite colors, my favorite brand of paint, but it's really reliable in the field. So some of these colors I do have in my studio palette, but others are Winsor Newton, maybe Sennelier. Let's see, what else do I have? A couple Daniel Smith. I did squeeze out some more cerulean blue last night because I go through a lot of cerulean blue. So that's not a fair assessment. But when you get to your site, all you have to do is mist them and you have really rich paint right away. Some other brands, after they've dried for a while, they turn into little crumbs and they're not pleasant to paint with. So what I do, and this one has been through a couple of trips, but what I do for a trip is I fill the wells, which I don't do with the other brands because, like I said, some of them, they just don't reconstitute very well, but these do. So I fill the wells. What have I got? I don't know, 15 colors maybe, and let it sit open so it solidifies. So I have plenty of paint. So on a 5-day trip, I usually do take the tubes just because I'm kind of concerned if I should run out. As the instructor, that wouldn't look very good. But if it's only a 3-day workshop, I don't even take the tubes because I know I've got plenty of paint. All right, so I'm going to approach this as a 4-step sketch, but taking it just a little bit further.
Julie,
So,
sorry to interrupt you. Can I ask you
so good.
what kind of paper are you using right now? And is
Oh,
why do you use rough instead of cold press?
oh, I just like the texture of rough. Um, I've never been a big fan of Arch's cold press. I can't even tell you why. Um, I like it in the 300 pound, but and to be honest, I haven't used it in the 140 pound in a long time. But I have used the 300-pound cold press and I liked it, but I just really like the rough. Now,
Yes.
this particular tablet is different. I just decided to use it because I'm trying to get rid of it. But I like it. It's good paper. It is so today it's Montval, Hanson Montval, and it
And
is
how do you deal with paper drying so quickly when you're out on location?
well,
Just
it's
keep
more
adding water.
it's more mindset than anything else. You know, I tell people, and not only do I tell people, I tell myself when I go out to plain air paint, I have to adjust my expectations down. I don't go with the idea of creating a wonderful painting. It's just too much pressure because you might be uncomfortable. Maybe the stool is tippy, or you're sitting on a rock and there's a spot that's digging into your behind, or you're hot, or you're cold, or the wind is blowing stuff around, or the bugs are landing, whatever. Um, there's so many things going on that I have to adjust my mindset. So I'm just going to enjoy the experience, do what I can, and know that I can do a studio painting later. I hope that answers some of the question. I thought I had it zoomed in so that you could see my palette. I'll try to bring the palette over from time to time. Um, so the fourth step, I did have some examples more than what I showed you. Uh, I have so much material and so little space. So I'll show it to you this way. Um, no, I'm not going to show it that way. I got the wrong, I queued it up to the wrong page. I'll just have to show you. But the examples I have show the finished product. So for this painting, this was my 4-step sketch. It wasn't plein air, it was studio. But a lot of times people want to know, well, what's the difference? The difference is the mindset, which I will talk about as I'm doing it. This helps set me up for this painting. Now, sometimes they're really not pretty at all, but it helped me to do this one, which was on the slideshow. Again, not very pretty, but did I learn from it? Yes, I did. I think, well, I usually do this size, which is, this paper is 9 by 12. The image is, probably about 8 by 10. I usually use this size so people can see better, but I actually think it's beneficial to do them even a little bit smaller. So I don't know, what is that? Maybe 4 by 7, maybe something like that. Oh, let's see it. I have a couple things to show later, but I didn't want to do it now. So this is going to be taken a little bit further than my normal 4-step. So I'm going to use 4 colors, and I'll put them out here. That is azo yellow. This is quinacridone red. My overhead fan is drying my palette up quite a bit. And there's cerulean blue. My fourth color I'll put on later, but this is what I'm going to use for the first two of the painting steps. So simplification in composition. I just sketched in the most important shapes. I spent maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, did it really quickly. But I had started a quote unquote real painting. So I had some of that information on the shapes already in my mind. So that helped me do this more quickly. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, or the opposite. Simplification in drawing and composition, simplification in colors using primaries only, simplification in process, going to just use 4 steps. This is the first step. And simplification of value, light, medium, and dark. So we're going to look at this, and I do this in plein air as well. This really helps when I'm in plein air, when I'm around looking at everything and I'm just, oh my God, I love that, I love that, I love that. How am I ever going to achieve it? How, all those things that run through your head. I just say, okay, settle down, follow the 4 steps. So I choose, first I look around, take a lot of pictures, just kind of get familiar and settle. At some point, you got to settle on a composition. Settle on a composition, and then a simple sketch. So that's what I've already done. Before I move this out of the way, though, we're going to look now at value. So I'm looking at 3 values. So I have learned to separate these values in my head into light, medium, and dark. And it takes some practice. So we're looking at value in general over the whole composition. The lightest value would be the clouds. The darkest value is probably these little crevice shadows underneath those cliffs and the tree trunks. Everything else is medium. So we're also going to look at value in relative terms. So, for example, in this area right here, we don't have any white at all, but we still have in relative terms, let's see, I don't want to look at the sky, I just want to look at that cliff. So in that section, even though we don't have anything that's truly light, we still have, in relative terms, light, medium, and dark. So we're looking at value overall and in certain areas. Now, I hope that makes sense. And of course, if it doesn't, please let me know. I'll try my best to clarify. So I'm going to start with the light. I'm not going to worry about negative painting. This is supposed to be a sketch, not a painting. So, the other important thing is to use not a beautiful round pointed brush, but a flat brush. And I'm painting just down to the clouds, because the only thing I need to save at this point is the white. I don't need to save anything else. So that blue, it can just go anywhere, really, except in the clouds. So I'm just going to paint it down. I'm not using any technique per se, just slapping it on. So the way I'm slapping the paint on should give you the answer if you are still questioning what's the difference between a sketch like this and a real painting. Right now, I'm just trying to capture the main elements and the essence of the scene. So now I'm going to, you can see that the horizon is darker than the sky above. So I'm sure you already know that if you don't want the colors to run together, you let it dry. If you don't care, or if you actually want it to blend, then you don't let it dry. So for my 4-step sketch, I usually, it depends. If I'm in a class and I feel like they need to see the steps separated, then I will let it dry. If I'm on my own, nah, I don't. I just keep painting. Now you can see that the overhead fan has dried it. So it's kind of a similar situation as to plein air, because it's going to dry
Julie,
a lot faster.
sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Can you tell me what those 3 colors were on the side again?
Oh, and these are M. Graham. Azo
Thank you.
yellow, quinacridone red, and cerulean blue.
Okay,
Not
thank
the
you. And
cerulean blue deep. It's just plain cerulean blue.
okay. And why did you say you used a flat brush instead of a round brush?
Oh, good question, because I love to say this.
Thanks to
People in my
Deborah.
class are so tired of hearing it. um, so most of the people in my classes take my classes because they are trying to loosen up. I myself am always trying to loosen up. So here's my theory. My theory is, and I've experienced a gazillion times, I'll say, okay, this time I'm going to get loose. I swear, this time I'm not going to get tight. This time I swear, I'm going to be loose. And then I pick up my beautiful pointed brush, and that loose thought that starts in my brain travels down my arm and right in the little tippy beautiful point of my round brush and becomes a small thought. So I find it easier to maintain looseness with a big brush. Now, does that mean I use this all the time in my real paintings? No. I love my round brushes. My favorite is right now is this one, which has this beautiful point. But for this sketch, I have a different motivation and a different goal than I have for the real painting. I'm trying to learn about the subject. So now I'm going to go. I started a little bit with the medium. I forgot to mention, sorry. The light stage was that initial wash. And I really didn't carry it quite far enough. Let's see, I'm going to show you the mixing. Got some other yellow on here, which I don't want. I want to stay true to what I said. So I do have another light that needs to be established. This one right here. So this yellow, which is azo yellow, that red, which is quinacridone red, and cerulean blue. I should get rid of this for the sake of the demo. Let me get rid of that really dark blue because I don't want that right now. Looks like it's a little too warm. So add a little more blue, cerulean blue. maybe just a little more red. So it's mixing color is always a balancing act. You can go back and forth until you get something that looks about right. Now, you always have to remember also that watercolor dries about 30% lighter. And right now we're judging the values against white. So everything's going to look a little bit darker than same colors. This is kind of a warm brown. So I misspoke a minute ago because I said that this was a medium, and I should have waited. It is kind of a medium, but I really should have waited because I want to get my lights down first. So sorry about that. That's a little bit warmer, that cliff over there. I want to balance though, so I'll put a little more warmth here just to bring this closer. So there are some lighter values in relative terms in these overhanging, I don't know what that is. It's a pine or some sort of,
Poplar?
no, it's an evergreen of some sort.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know if it's a fir or a spruce. I'm not sure what it is. But just be aware that I'm still using the same colors as I will as I go through. So the other thing I wanted to point out is that you can see I'm not using any technique. That was the other thing I meant to say that I forgot. When I know that when I get to the real painting, that I will have all sorts of techniques at my disposal to achieve atmosphere, um, you name it. I'll have techniques such as splatter. I'll have, oh, if I want to use salt, I can use salt. Now I'm getting into the medium. You can see how it's going to blend. If you don't want it to blend, then you know what to do. Let it dry before you do this. I'm also trying to incorporate, or let's see, what's the word? Trying to have the shapes attach to each other. So what I mean by that is I don't want my tree trunks to look like they've been stuck on. So I want my branches to attach to the trunks. I want the shadows in the foliage to attach to the trunks. I want these trunks to attach to each other, stuff like that. Still three colors. Going to build up the medium tones. Now, while I do this, I'm doing a lot of squinting so that I'm not looking at the single trunks, but looking at the big shapes, the contrasting big pieces of value, that sort of thing. Now for the final darks, I do give myself permission to use a pointed brush. Sometimes I'll stick with the flat as long as I can. Sometimes, but sometimes I'll use a round brush. I'll bring a little bit of that medium tone into the water because it's the same color as the cliff. So start looking a little more reflective if you bring that color down. Attach that color to the greens. Over on this side. Now, as I do these medium values, I take a lot more time with the mediums than I do with the light or the dark, both in my sketches and in my finished paintings. That's not right or wrong, it's just what I do. So it might seem to you that the medium value stage goes on long enough that you might think, well, that's another step. And it would be perfectly reasonable to think that way. My perception is that I'm still in the medium, so I'm still in the medium stage. So it's, it's also how you personally think about it. And that's looking a little picky, so I'll take my wide brush and just pull some of those together. And while I'm squinting, I can see that all that foliage just kind of runs together. Which, if you're not squinting, we have a tendency to see the separate trees and paint them that way. So let's say I need to repeat something I said a moment ago. And by the way, still the same colors. Of course, if it's darker, that just means, less water. More paint, less water, but they're the same colors. Now, this might look dark to you, and I will tell you that it looks darker on the monitor than it does in person. And the same thing I said a minute ago holds true, that we're comparing these medium tones to the lighter values. So when I get to the darks, I'll say, okay, now the darks. And then you'll be able to see a big difference in tone. I can't stress enough the importance of squinting so they all go together. So you see the big shapes and not the little picky stuff. If I weren't squinting, my I don't know, my psyche, I don't know what it would be. Something would not allow me to just go in there and mess it up like that. And yet I know that messing it up is going to give me a better result. That's a little warmer in reality, but I mean, in the picture, it's warmer, but I don't want it to come forward. So I'm going to warm this up a little bit more just to help it come forward. Okay, so now I'm going to dip down here into the foreground and put some of those reflections in mid-tones. Very green. The blue underpainting will help with the reflections. the greens here are reflecting down. So I'm not making it up. You can see it's right there. The overhanging boughs are reflecting right down. So I just need to make sure that I get that in the right place. Now I have a little bit of reflection shorthand that I use when painting reflections. And I'm not sure if it's going to work well in this case or not. I'm going to try it just for the heck of it when it gets to the right point of being dry. And that is to put in some vertical brush strokes. But first, I got to come over here and put this in. So my shorthand, first of all, is to use the wide flat brush and kind of go like this to begin with. But if you want it to look really reflective, you need some vertical movement. This looks a little bit too stripy, so I'm going to pull some of it together. And let's see, over here, is it time? I don't think it's quite time. So one of the things about watercolor is learning to judge the degree of wet and dry, both of your paper and your paint. So you can see that I'm trying to, with some of these ripples that you see coming across, I'm trying to connect them to the other side, but not to the point where I lose this path of light. But I don't know if I'm waiting quite long enough, but I want to make the point. Sometimes this is more of a technique I would use in a real painting, but I'm trying to take this one just a little bit further. I'll even do some splatters to go to create that downward movement. So let's do some on this side. So it's a really good idea to practice these types of things on another piece of paper. Looks a little bit too open. And I look at the picture. There's a kind of a yellow glow right here. I'm going to try to get that in. Probably need to put a little bit of that warmth down here in the reflection. Okay, so I pretty much have the mediums in. So I really spent a lot of time looking around because I really want not to have to come back and do more medium later. You can, if I feel like the piece has some possibilities and that coming back and doing a little bit more would benefit and maybe make more of a real painting out of it. There's nothing that says I can't do that. But when I'm trying to stick to the absolute 4 steps, I try to get the values complete at each point because I know that that's going to give me the most benefit from the exercise.
Julie, we're coming up to about an hour and 11 minutes here. I know that people are going to have questions and answers. I don't want to lose anyone to this fabulous demo.
Yeah, I better get to the darks. The darks are what helps to pull a painting together. So now I'm going to add the dark blue. Looks like I didn't leave any room for it here. This happens to be indanthrine blue. I also, oops, that's not the right color. I need that red. I also use Prussian. So now I'm going to see if I can pull this together with, I went to my round brush. Like I said, I give myself permission to finish it off with a round. It's all wet down here at the bottom. That I have to kind of twist it a little bit to be able to get my hand in there. Now I have started this as a quote unquote real painting that's not finished, but I can show you how that's going. And you can see some of the dark values. Can't get my hand in there without landing in a puddle. Let's see, we probably need to get this. So these are the same colors with the addition of a dark blue. So when it comes to value, every dark color has a base of dark blue. So I couldn't really finish a painting without a dark blue. Cerulean is a color that I absolutely love. I can hardly paint without using cerulean, but it's not capable of dark values. There's a little root hanging down here. A little bit of vertical. See, there's some dark over here. Make sure I put it above the water line. So my real paintings take quite a few hours. I'm not a fast painter, so you might see me doing something like this and think it's that I'm a fast painter, but I really am not. I think things through and am pretty methodical. So this is one I would never offer for sale. But did I capture the essence of the scene very
Absolutely.
quickly? I think I did.
Yeah, I agree.
And the actual painting, let's see. that, like I said, it's not finished.
Wow.
So for this one, I did use some masking fluid. I masked out the tops of the logs, and there's a dead tree over here that has some little twigs sticking up out of the water. So I masked those, I masked these. Um, I didn't feel like negative painting in that area was really the right thing to do. It felt like it would be too picky. So I basically followed the same steps, except that now I've really jumped into the darks here, whereas I've saved it for the last. But there's a big difference between a study
Mm.
and a real painting.
Yeah. And Julie,
Let's
do you do
see.
the 4 steps in your study? I'm sorry, do you do the 4 steps in your real painting as well?
Well, let me see. How do I put that? How do I? Oh, here's the 4-step I did in class for this, which I think turned out better than this one. Um, smaller is probably, oh, I'm sorry. Smaller is probably a better idea than larger. Um, so the 4 steps apply, but I don't necessarily stick to them in the real painting. Because in a real painting, you can use salt, you can use splatter, you can use
Mm.
masking fluid. You want your colors to be maybe more creative. So there's so many different things that you can do to create the atmosphere, whatever vision you have. We have methods and techniques and stuff that you can use. Um, so the 4-step sketch does apply, but I do take it much further. Let's see, another thing, when I do my darks, I try to keep them transparent, not thick. So they're wet and transparent. This came up in class the other night, and we did a thing on darks. Because if you get them too dry or not transparent enough, then they kind of start looking a little clunky. So I do try to keep my darks as transparent as the lights. If you limit the water too much, then of course it becomes more opaque. So I try not to go past that. But you can still get very dark and still have it transparent. Let's see. Is there anything else I should have covered? Any questions?
I think it was all the questions about your process. Sarah says, thank you for sharing your process. Thank you for answering the question about the flat brush versus the round and repeating all of your 4 steps again. Joan said that was so helpful. Thank you. Well,
I've got
everyone
so
can
many.
join us on Madeline
Yeah.
Island in September 9th through the 9th through the 13th. Julie, like I said, she's going to be doing 2 light plein air days outside, and then the rest will be in the fabulous light colored studio. And I have to say, last year, Julie, your students produced so many pieces in that
It
5 days. It was
really
just
did.
remarkable.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time doing it too.
Yeah, so
Yeah, the
definitely, I mean,
studio is great.
these vistas and these views are incredible on Madeline Island. I mean, you found all the perfect spots. Margaret Baxter said, thank you. That was such a helpful demo. Thank you so much. Well, please,
Well,
everyone,
my
join
pleasure.
us on Madeline Island. If you have any more questions for Julie that we weren't able to answer, or you didn't have a chance to ask today, you can email Misa at madelineschool.com, and we will certainly get those questions from Julie answered for you. And I agree, it was an awesome demo by Julie today. Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you.
much for your time. And we look forward to seeing you on Madeline Island. You had mentioned you're going to Hudson Valley in July, and then you'll see us in September on Madeline.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, I really
thank
look forward
you.
to it.
Julie
Thank
Gilbert
you.
Pollard, what a wonderful, talented artist you are. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
All right, I am going to sign off, and everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, Christy. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.